First order of agenda, pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, 1.2. Gonna read it today, Stephen? Absolutely.
Our mission is to graduate all students with high levels of academic and personal achievement, ready for post-secondary excellence, prepared for productive, compassionate citizenship, research-based instruction, and a collaborative system of support.
Thank you. Any changes or additions today? No. All right. 3.0 public forum. Individuals are on site. During this portion of the board meeting, members of the public are specifically invited to present items of commendation and or concern. At the discretion of the board chair, further public participation may be allowed at the time specific agenda items are under consideration by the board. Individuals are viewing online. We post the upcoming agenda on our website the Friday before regularly scheduled Monday school board meetings. This will allow the public to comment prior to the board meeting. Please use the link provided to share your comments for the school board to consider at the upcoming meeting. Personnel matters may not be discussed during a public board meeting. Members of the public who have personnel concerns or commendations should share them directly with the superintendent. Looks like we have one comment submitted for in person. Daphne. Hi.
Hi, so for those of you who don't know me, I'm Daphne Metcalf. I'm the library media coordinator at the middle school and high school. For all intents and purposes, I'm the librarian. I wanted to give you guys like a state of the library, like a state of the union almost, since the remodel of everything. So first off, we had the big remodel in the summer. That meant in spring, I got the wonderful opportunity of me, my aides, and some wonderful volunteers to pack up thousands of books in boxes, and we did that. Since I was gonna be touching every single book, I thought it'd be a great opportunity to genreify, which is all the fiction books were just sorted author's last name, but this means that now they are in fantasy or mystery or sci-fi. So I, by hand, got to sort just shy of 3,000 fiction books, determine what genre, and if they're middle school or high school reading level. That has extremely increased circulation, which is awesome. So many more kids are checking out books. So in the fall, we unpacked all the books. The format of the library is great for all the genreification. The circulation data. So last December to this past December, a 33% increase. January, a 62% increase. In February, a 108% increase, which is more than double the amount of the year before. Most popular genres are graphic novels and fantasy. The kids eat those up. The libraries received 2 grants from the Education Foundation this year. We had one for book displays, so we can prop the books up and they will not fall over anymore. As well as updated health books. These aren't textbook health books. These are more on the nonfiction ones about diseases. So when you got tuberculosis or the flu, most of those books were 20+ years old. So now we got more updated health books. We just received those. General, the couches in there are a big hit. The kiddos love them. They love the chairs, like the furniture is phenomenal. The library got a lot of board games and card games, which are a huge hit. The kids love those as well. Guess Who and chess are some of the most popular. We've had monthly themed interactive library programming where the students get to interact in some crafts or just learn about themes of the month. We're doing March Mammal Madness. For Valentine's, we have blind date with the book. Upcoming will be Poetry Month, so we'll have some cool phone activities. Some feedback from the cell phone policy that we started on January 6th. So first thing, I'm not a teacher, so this is not a teacher experience. I'm just a classified staff member of the library. I've seen very positive results. Since it's been enacted, especially from the fall to now, the library usage has been up. There's more foot traffic, kids are in there, much more use of the library space. There's usually around 15 kids in there before school. Usually middle school lunch has 20 to 30 students. High school has 15 to 20 students on average daily. The highest, we one time at middle school lunch had 55 students in there. And high school had about 35 in there. It is, some days are more chaotic than others, but I'm so glad the kids have that space. The biggest thing from the cell phone policy is that students I'm seeing more face-to-face interactions that kids between each other, and I think that is phenomenal for their social skills. I'm so happy for that. I see kids who I don't think normally would interact, talking about, hey, you're on chess team, can you help me with this move over here? It's great. Upcoming, we have some more exciting monthly programming coming up, like I mentioned, Poetry Month. I personally am going to the Pacific Northwest Library Association Conference in April. Very excited, because conferences are some of my only professional development. I actually got a scholarship, so now the school district's not paying for that at all. It's awesome. In conclusion, library is thriving, and the renovations had a very positive impact on the students. So thanks to the Education Foundation and to the board for approving it. And thank you, board, for all your hard work.
Thank you. Thanks for the update. Awesome. I got to walk through it a few months ago, or earlier this year. It looks really good.
We got a cool, we have some more sculptures in there from art, so you'll have to
Nice.
check it out.
Okay, very cool. Is there answer questions?
No, they did that report, that's awesome. I do have a question. Is the librarians conference required? No?
No, the library, they're actually a very rowdy bunch.
Just curious.
Perfect. All right, and then no online comments, correct? Okay. Well, thank you again. On the 5 action items, 5.1. Approved February board meeting minutes. All your functions, unless there's any questions. February 23,
What do you say?
perfect, so then moved, all those in favor? Aye. Passes with 4 yes votes. 5.2, accept the enrollment reports.
Our enrollment is holding steady. We are currently down 5 cents where we were in January. But you can see about 20 students from where we were last year. So still good news with our enrollment.
Thank you. Any questions from anyone on the enrollment this time? All the motions, and so moved, all those in favor? Aye. Passes forward, yes votes. 5.3, approved personnel action.
All right, so this is the big one in March, which has happened prior to March 15th, which is the renewal for contract extensions for our licensed staff members. So you can see that's split out by administrators for both probationary, 1-year contracts, 3 years, for our licensed staff. And then also includes, probationary 1 to 2 year contracts. What's the complete one for the entire district?
Any question on that? All right, all your motions on that.
Personnel action resolution 2526.
Then so moved, all those in favor? Aye, passes 4 yes votes. 5.4, approve 2026-27 academic calendar.
I can't believe we are here again. I'm not even so what you've got in front of you is a collection of really a couple of different calendars. So the staff was provided 3 total to take a look at this year. All 3 calendars met the collective bargaining agreement and instructional hours by the WDP. All 3 of them had 175 student contact days, 32 early release days. Calendars also all 3 of them had the 2 inclement weather report days on January 4th and February 15th. In addition, one of the calendars I guess two of the calendars, there's two variations. One of them had conferences immediately prior to the end of the first quarter grading. And then one of them had conferences on Monday and Tuesday of Thanksgiving week. So some of the feedback that we received and other districts have gone this route as well is wanting more time to be able to do grades. Get them done prior to conferences. There was also an additional variation with one of them. This year we start Labor Day a little bit later. So this is actually allowed for a Friday, non-contract day prior to Labor Day weekend for licensed staff. Labor Day consideration. So Labor Day falls on September 7th this year. And so that would essentially extend us into the third week of June. There was some feedback as far as, going that late. We've got right now about 4 districts in Wayne County that are going to start prior to Labor Day, with everyone else sticking towards starting after Labor Day. It's my understanding, some feedback that I've got is the district that previously tried a calendar starting before Labor Day. It wasn't, didn't go over really well for the community. So this calendar, Labor Day starts after Labor Day. What we did is we took variation 3, which was the conferences happening the Monday and Tuesday of Thanksgiving, and the variation of calendar number 2, which had the non-contract day on September 4th. It's a non-work day for licensed staff before Labor Day. Put those two together, and that gives you the calendar that's in front of you. Grades 1 through 5, 6, and 9 will begin on September 9th. And that'll just help support transition to new school levels, for especially our 6th and 9th graders. And then grade 7, 8, 10, 11, and 12 will begin on September 10th. Our kindergarten will also do their staggered start, as we have over the last couple of years as well. Have any questions about that? And otherwise, very, very approval next year.
Looks good to me, I think. So, any motions? All your motions, that's fine.
I will. So, consider academic calendar. 5, 6, 6.
All right, that's so moved. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes with 4 yes votes. 5.5. Approved superintendent evaluation. Guess I'll read this one. You don't read your own evaluation, Jim? So the board and I went through a process of evaluating the superintendent, and we have a statement that we'll read for the evaluation for this current year, 2025-26. So the Board of Directors of Pleasant Hill School District has completed the annual evaluation of Superintendent June Chris for the 2025-26 school year. All 5 board members have served on the school board during the school year and have been able to observe and be part of the successes achieved this year. The evaluation focused on 2 parts, 8 professional standards and the 3 board/superintendent goals established at the beginning of the year. Those 3 goals were staff engagement, instructional systems and student achievement, as well as communication and community relations. Regarding the 8 professional standards, we determined Mr. Chris performance fell in 2 categories this year: accomplished performance and effective performance. Below are our ratings, so there were 4 in accomplished performance for visionary district leadership, inclusive district culture, culturally responsive, instructional leadership and improvement, effective financial management. And effective performance was ethics and professional norms, communication and community relations, effective organizational management, and policy, governance, and advocacy. The board believes Mr. Chris has found a meaningful assessment tool the district can use moving forward to more accurately measure student progress and achievement. We're very excited to see the initial data from STAR roll out and are looking forward to regular updates and the future action based on the results we gather. Mr. Chris continues to focus on professional development for district staff, ensuring they have the necessary support and tools to meet the needs of our students. He has also done well prioritizing district facility needs and upgrades without negatively impacting future budgets. Finally, Mr. Chris has been able to resolve tense, difficult situations with a measured and pragmatic approach that, while making sure the district's interests are protected, also serves the best interests of our students, staff, and community. The board looks forward to continuing its partnership with Mr. Chris to achieve the goals listed above, to create a unified learning environment where both staff and students can thrive. Yeah, we really appreciate all the work you've done. Should report with you guys outside of that. Any other comments from anyone? No. All right, well, I will hear motions to approve the superintendent evaluation.
I'm gonna do approve this week, or minute evaluation.
It's been so moved, all those in favor? Aye. Absolutely, 4 yes votes. All right, on to board item 6 for discussion, 6.1, board legislative / ODE engagement reading. The professional proficiency standards.
These are kind of one and the same for these two. But there've been a couple of questions recently regarding proficiency standards from the states, what those standards mean in terms of Oregon, greater national norms. And also the possibility of wanting to do some work from the board level. As an advocacy work on that, that's just some additional research and imagine possibly even some letter writing or reaching out to OSBA folks. So this was bond if you will discussion. Session.
Yeah. So there's already some districts that have a lot of questions. The state without some of those standards or with the STAR data.
Yeah, they've been coming, I would say that Bend the Pine right now is probably, that's been, I guess, the most vocal in some of the meetings that I'm in, as far as not necessarily questioning, but understanding. I think there was understanding, there's some questioning as far as why does the state of Oregon choose proficiency standards that are so much higher than the rest of the nation. What you'll see coming up in the next few months is we've added, the state has added the accountability bill, which was K2 attendance and 8th grade math as 2 examples. They're also identifying longitudinal targets for those as well. So the initial one, for instance, for math, for 8th grade math, they had was a recommendation for 52%, which we're close to that. They want to see that by 2030 street. To give you an example, 3rd grade reading is like 52.6%. To get to a proficiency level, you've got to be at the 60th percentile above for 3rd grade reading. For math at the 8th grade level, it's the 70th percentile or above. So, you know, some of the questions are, if you got to score in the 70th percentile for math to be proficient, why are you choosing a similar score as you would for reading 60th percentile? So really kind of, I think there's just some movement as far as pushing the state to make this make sense. Especially for accountability legislation.
Right.
What? Are we back up? It's time to go. So I'm still trying, I did a bunch of reading this week about this, and I'm still trying to get my head around. When we say proficiency standard as it relates to goals. There are no federally mandated. Well, let me ask it differently. There's something the feds say we have to achieve to get their money. But the state decides how close we're going to get to those federally mandated standards?
Well, somewhat, correct, yes, so, the state. Through the federal legislation, and it's legislation that's specific to Title I, that's where the majority of the dollars come in. Will the states then, essentially have to apply for that money, and, through that, the states will tell the federal government, here's what our plan is as far as meeting the policy needs of this to be able to receive it. It is not as, I'm saying this, it is not as strict of a line as it once was. So if you remember during the Bush administration, we had child, that was a very strict, you must, meet, I think it was 100%. I don't remember, it was some years ago. And there were some pretty, strict measurements as far as, and outcomes that the district did not make, or school did not make, the score, the efficiency score, to the point where federal dollars were being moved over towards, charter schools, and charter schools were able to take, that money, and they were offering through laptops, if you come in and sign up with us instead, there's, I don't remember if there's any in Oregon, but they were also then, coming in and taking over schools and redoing leadership and teaching, as far as the positions. The accountability bill with Oregon now is similar to that. But as far as the we said, the state of Oregon has set their own proficiency standards. And the federal government essentially does not consider this that for themselves.
And so Arkansas, it said it submitted to the feds its plan that included a level of proficiency, which may or may not be the same as Oregon or California or Wyoming or Montana. They're all different. But they all meet the federal requirement to meet a standard.
Yes, but a standard specific to, for instance, title funding.
Right. So they need that. So Oregon decides to set its own proficiency standards, 95% or whatever it was for math that we looked at,
88% no.
and whatever it was for reading. And again, Arkansas might have set a 10%. I mean, what I'm trying to understand is two things. The comparative nature of this stuff, which seems, the more I read, the less sense it makes to compare yourself to another state, unless it's the same standard, it's not. So that seems strange to me, but then the second thing I'm trying to understand is if we're mad about the standards that the state has set. What are we saying we're mad about? We're mad it's too high, and we think it should be lower so we can beat it? I'm not clear what we would go lobby for if we're saying we want lower numbers. Well, what message are we sending if we're shaping our fist for lower numbers? That's what I would.
Yeah, I would not, I wouldn't necessarily be a proponent myself of lowering the numbers. I think the state needs to make sense of these new longitudinal targets and how those longitudinal targets are set. Because again, like I think if you use the third grade math and third grade reading and eighth grade language arts. If you were to say that a third grade reading, we want to meet 52.6% of our students meeting the proficiency standard. In order to meet the proficiency standard, the student has to score 60% or above as an nationally norm test. At eighth grade level, they've got the same proficiency rate, 52%, but we've got a score of 70% and above. So I think logic would tell you, hey, it's probably too high of a standard or goal. I think also in terms of meeting those standards and expecting to get there by 29-30 as an example for eighth grade math. Given that we've set standards so high, and now they have raised the stakes so high as far as the accountability bill, that if you don't really stand consistently 3 years in a row, they're saying they're gonna come over and essentially take over 20% of the budget until you have spent it.
And you're talking they,
It's
the Department of Education,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay,
And I think that's where some of the questions start to come up.
that makes way more sense. Thank you.
The standardization as far as how Oregon does in comparison to other states or the nation is really handled through the NAEP, which is the national norm test.
Well, that's the context to this being on the agenda. I had the same thought, like, why would we lower the bar? And my interest was for the state to make sense of the standards. We saw in math that the higher grade level you go, the more proficient you have to be. In 11th grade, you have to be 86 percentile to be proficient. I learned this week that at 90%, you're talented and gifted. So there's just no window there. And then I need to understand what proficient means. Are we talking about basic grade level, or are we solidly in the black grade level? And then does the testing that they're asking us to do go along with the standards in a way that in April the kids have been prepared to take that test, knowing they haven't completed the whole year. Those are my interests. Like, is the test valid? Is it good for what we're trying to show, to prove? Those are the questions that I have right now. Because mostly driven by Senate Bill 141, and that if we don't begin meeting these standards, the state becomes more and more involved in what we're doing here, and ultimately financially. So, in trying to avoid those punishment, obligation, whatever you want to call it, but at the state level, is the standard reasonable, and is the test truly proving proficiency? However we want to define proficiency.
I would add that the statewide assessment, we go through our trainings as well, but it don't, ODE does not talk about the statewide assessment as being an individual test or a proficiency test for individual kids to be able to use. Now, we can use it as that, but we get the data, so the data is still made, but it doesn't mean that there is some correlation. You're going to say, so does the SAT and the ACT in terms of if a student says that they're a 4.0, but they are scoring really low on the SAT or the ACT, there's no correlation, right? But they have SAT and the correlation techniques are matching. But they tell us that it's really a systems test. It's for the state of the district to know who the systems are actually looking by the students who are reaching proficiency. We know what they think of the bell curve. 70% are starting to think about that full state education.
Right.
That's the top of the top. So there's a lot of questions about why they did set them so high. I think from the emotional standpoint, when a measure is so high that I think if you use this 8th grade math again, that, 69% of kids are never gonna reach it. That can be really, over time, just kind of, diminishing as far as just, grades and system down, where people just. I don't think that people are, are giving up on any means. And I don't think they're saying lower the bar, but I think there's really questions that are coming out of it now, just based on the data on what the state says to do, that they'll do if you don't get a standard. I think that's a standard 3 years ago.
Being so low for so long. Thinking. General public. Starts to lose faith in the system a bit and. Where, birth rates are low, like we don't need more things affecting our enrollment. That. Simply because we have. Misaligned targets or a misaligned. Yes.
What percentage of like students have the age proficiency or do not have the state?
Well, I would say for math again as well, because this is the one that's on everyone's, it's low for everybody. It has not been approved yet as a target, but the one that was just shared with this last Friday from the Department of Ethics, it was going to be 52%.
Over half the kids have to be the 80% of that.
But you 70% of it. Yeah.
And everybody is low. But really because I point to some flaw in the system. At some point along the way. I mean, if. A large majority. Of 8th graders in the state of Oregon. They're all moving on to 9th grade. But only 20% are proficient in math. The standard math, that's just bad, the first few of the standards math, one of those things is off.
One or more.
Or more.
I'd say from a policy perspective, we'll see this, and we have been seeing this, is that when you. And it's not bad data, because data is the data, but if you. You do end up, I think, considering that there are systems there, something wrong with the Oregon education system, because only such a small portion of our kids are reading standards. The legislation or the policy that results from that, is usually flawed. It's not gonna fix our system.
Well, that's what's been bouncing around my head is, like, I understand the sentiment, why do we want to set a standard lower? But, we gotta consider what's best practice, what's research-based review, best practice, what's recommended standard. And like, who says that, but if we haven't set so high. And it's perpetual that Oregon is one of the worst in the nation in terms of the schooling supposedly, and these are because we're using these, then yeah, I agree that. But in response to that is. It's probably not gonna be effective, it's gonna be potentially alarmist, and you're gonna have situations like what you have now. Where it doesn't seem tenable, or desirable for the school districts. Where we're getting. Potentially state involvement at the school district level.
Which. But that's absolutely in our. Description as a board. To. Be involved in how it goes at the state level, so many decisions are made there that. Trickle down and. Well, once the, people here, it's too late. It's too late to do anything.
What do we have?
Like,
As far as just like keeping informed what's going on or voicing concerns about different aspects of it or.
there is an opportunity here, it's just the idea of how much any one of you can do individually versus, appointing somebody to do and defining whatever do is as far as the board's do. Go out and further research, talk with OSBA on behalf of the board, gather information on behalf of the board. And, you know, the consideration may be, is there advocacy work that the board can do in preparation for this? A letter to the governor, a letter to the department, or the employee, the OSBA, to see if there are other boards that are willing to come together. The Lane County school districts, so they want to get them both together. It's kind of, I've got the interest there, and so I think, for you guys should be considering whether or not you want of somebody to do that. So that's cool. Are interested.
I'm certainly willing to do that and have been, but the disconnect that I see. And I don't know what to do about it, is. In our little district, the representations that we have in Salem, whether it's in the House or the Senate. Is 100% behind local control and wants us to have absolute sovereignty over the system. So lobbying them. And you can even go a little ways outside of here, and you have friends in the House and the Senate, it's the trouble, you're a super minority there. And without getting political and partisan, you don't have the sympathetic here on the other side of the aisle for the governor, who frankly cares about folks on that we would be interested in having a discussion and say a little bit, they're not listening. So there's two things going on. It's not gonna hurt to go discuss things with OSBA and to send a letter to the governor. That's one of the bad things. It's just. It's such a big battle to fight in trying to get other sympathetic voices to Salem so that those comments, concerns, considerations actually matter. And somebody decides to do something about it. So that, I mean, that's a bit of a pessimistic view, but I've been speaking it now for 6 months, and I think this is not very helpful.
I think the rural caucus within the OSBA is developing quite a voice.
The rural caucus.
At least it's all the rural districts coming together and saying it with one voice, as opposed to just every little district along the highway. If you're hearing it from rural caucus and you're hearing it from OSBA, you're hearing it from the representatives from this area. I think those things can at least get traction enough for conversation. I fully agree with you, I think it's a very much an uphill battle, but I think it's a battle worth.
Yeah, you're right. I think it's hard to have to fight. You know, you got a choice. Just it feels bigger than. There's more. There's other fights to have along with it.
Oh, yes, yes.
Now is probably a really good time to start some of these conversations, especially through like the rural caucus and OSBA. In light of them getting going through their next rounds, when they come around, they visit each of the regions. Because that would be a topic, and you know, that's your time for all the regional school board members to meet together with their NESD and do something proactive.
I sat down with, Stephanie Fisher from Lodge this week, and that was last week, they,
Cause since those worker presentations and things, I had a jumble of questions and. She very graciously walked through it with me and. I look. There's so much that I don't even get yet, but I'm trying, and I don't know that there is. I couldn't tell you, let's go advocate for. A different math standard.
Sure.
I don't know if that's the thing, I don't know if there's something to advocate for, but. There's enough questions about the efficacy of the stuff that I think it needs investigated.
Yeah, and I think that's a good way to put it, and not necessarily, we're specifically asking to decrease or lower our expectation, let's, as I mean, not to repeat myself, but let's base it off of something that means tested, something that's supported in the literature that's that says this is where you should be aiming for in order to, you know, to some degree, to some version of the goals that we have at the district. I'm sure that all these things, most of the school districts in the state want to do, they just say it differently. But in order to accomplish this, when we graduate kids from our district or from the state, what does proficiency even look like in order to actually be successful there? And are we measuring it correctly? Are we finding it correctly and measuring it correctly? And nothing else would be really nice to know again why they made this, why they are the way they are right now. Not like how we arrived here. I'm sure it's something along the lines of, well, you know, if we want to accomplish things, and we need to set the bar really high if we want to be good. But I mean, that's not as effective as what's actually supported by research, what's supported by stuff that's been tested, stuff that's been peer reviewed, that's best practice. And it's important to have the engagement with some form of body that has some kind of influence on the legislative body and to do it consistently. Because like we're at the OSBA roadshow this last fall, and all these folks are like, you know, somebody should do this and do this and do this, and it's like you said, like you're so far behind. Like where were you like when this was all happening? Like if you're engaged consistently and not just when something comes up you don't like it, and you know that's it, you're not engaged again. Not much is gonna get done, not much is gonna change.
I'm just, a reminder, the state target that has been set for us for percentage of students taking the statewide assessment is 95%. And they changed the way in which they report. Configure the measurements on whether or not you're at or above that 95%, if you're below that 95%, which makes it even more difficult to meet the 16 years. And at the same time, we have a legislative law that allows for opt-out. Yeah, they want almost 100%. Which is.
Well, low hanging fruit here.
There's just, even in this short session, this is probably one of the busiest short sessions we've had in the legislature, especially around education. There's so many things that just don't make sense. As an example, they approved legislation to use the common school fund, common school, right? It's basically an assessment pool, or a pool where we, well, yeah, property, unclaimed funds, and then that's redistributed to the school. They allow the state to use that for $44 million Bella, this great hospital, and we've got other funds that will be used for that. Jimmy and Bill, right? Version. And at the same time, telling you everyone that you're going to be one. Yeah, you've got to take.
Right.
Take control of it. Yeah. And it's a, not a. I'm not a conspiracy person, but when you see billions of dollars being thrown at an industry and then legislative action, you start to wonder what is the end game as far as those money's going. It's not all maybe to us.
So we just need to have a motion to nominate someone to, like, communicate on behalf of the board essentially, to gather more information for us.
Yeah, and I think that there would be, it's important to think about whether some. Yeah, guardrails.
So like you said,
Parameters.
Parameters.
Yeah, there's gotta be, we can't just identify somebody, we gotta identify somebody and like give them like a specific goals. Specific tasks, so that, because if we leave it wide open, then. That can get us and. Personally, not, if he doesn't need, it's just especially. Burns waters. Yeah. Because we wanna make sure it's a consensus of the board, whatever that person's doing for the most part. As much as possible.
So this, it could be as something as simple as being able to do outreach and gather information, to bring back to the board would be that. In addition to, beginning to develop, a very designated opinion about, for the board.
For investigation at this point,
What else?
so until there's something a little more defined that we're thinking we want to pursue.
Sure. Well, here, he wants to be construction. Well.
Look, I see your board member wants to.
well, in full transparency, I am. I'm looking at that world. In the future. And. So I'm super engaged anyway in a lot of that stuff. That doesn't mean this, it's not that I need to do, it doesn't mean that at all. But it's super interesting to me, and I think it matters if there's anything. Matters even. But you want to. Well, there's not, so you're all, you never do.
Okay.
Well, something that's still will wait for a motion.
I nominate. Jennifer, to be the board liaison regarding this state assessment policy. And to conduct. An investigation or to gather additional information to present back to the board for further. Discussion. Potential further steps.
Sounds good. Give the nomination, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Here you go, passes 4 yes votes.
I'll go back over the report.
Just says it says in the minutes word salad.
All right, agreed. There you go. And 6.2 is consideration of board liaison assignment regarding state assessment policy.
That's what we did.
We said someone's before.
We did both together, I see.
We did all of it.
Okay,
Basically,
so that's 7.1 calendar of events. Any updates on that?
There's really not, just a reminder of the big event that's coming up on Saturday is the Mr. Billy Pageant High School Gym at 7 o'clock. We've got some a band and choir concerts the following week as well on the 18th and 19th.
Okay. Sounds good. Any other business of anyone? No. All right, then 9.0, we're going to recess the meeting into executive session to discuss employment of a public officer.
Okay.
All right,
We convene the regular board session. Next agenda item 11.1, consideration of a board motion authorizing contract negotiation authority. Do I hear a motion?
I move to, appoint Drew to coordinate with, I don't know how to say it, the district attorney or the
yeah, Mr. Big answer.
district council to review the proposed contract for the superintendent, and present final draft to the board for or to present the final draft to the board for any additional feedback or for final approval at the next board meeting. In other words, Helen.
Perfect. Then so moved. All those in favor? Yeah, 4 yes votes against.
You know what, if it's not right, in minutes, I won't remember.
Right. 12.0. Our next scheduled board meeting was March 23rd, that is canceled due to spring break. So the next regularly scheduled board meeting will be April 6th here at the News Center at 7 p.m. We are adjourned.
Say Ryan's.
Oh,